Hello and welcome to your 14th C# tutorial. This one is going to be about one of the most important things in C#, classes. So, you've probably noticed there is this thing, it's class program, and then has these brackets. Inside of here we have our methods, and you can make your own classes. This is, it's not very complicated. All you have to do is you type class, and then you type whatever name you want it to be. I'm going to call it a book. It doesn't really matter what you call it. I'm just going to call it book. What a class is it's just like a type of object, or a class of object. It's like a type of thing, to put it very, very generally. It's a type of thing. Now, if you go down to your main method and you type book, you'll notice that it comes up as, class, namespace, whatever. Which we'll talk about later too. Anyway, so you can type this and then it will be highlighted in blue because the compiler realizes that it is a class that's been created. And you can use classes as variable types. Just like you can type int x equals 0, you can type book x equals, well, you can't type 0, but you can type equals new book and then parentheses. And this is just the basic syntax for creating a new object of this class. So if you ever want to make a new book, or any class, you just type x equals new class name, parentheses, and then possibly parameters, but we're not going to do that quite yet. So all classes are for is just for really, like, it's like the cornerstone of the whole object-oriented thing, which C# is an object-oriented programming language. What it means is that, like, everything is an object, which means everything has its own methods and its own variables and everything. Like, for example, you have like a car and you have a book, and those are objects. But you have types of cars and types of books. Like, you have like a fiction book or a non-fiction book or something like that, or historical fiction or whatever. But in like cars, you have like a Toyota or a Mercedes. It's just different kinds of things, and you can make, well, never mind. Anyway, so for right now, we're just going to do in here, just write public string type, like this. And what this does is this makes a variable called type inside of the book class. And we can access this whenever we want just by typing x dot type. And now you can use it just like you would any variable. If I were to write equals fiction, and then down here, x dot type. Yeah, it's just like using a normal variable, except for this. Now it's just letting you know that this is a variable in x, and it's called type. So, for example, if you had a book y equals new book. Also, a quick tip: if you're in Visual Studio and you just type equals new and then space, it'll just insert the type for you, so you don't actually have to type it all out. Now we do y dot type equals non-fiction, and now we can. Yeah, it does a lot of really convenient spelling checks like that, which is nice. Anyway, so when we run this program, it says the first one fiction, second one non-fiction. It's exactly like you would expect. But you'll notice it is different. Like, you're not just typing in the same thing. X has a type and Y has a type. They're both different objects, but they're also both books, which means they both have a type. That's the most important part, is that all objects, which is what like a variable of the type book is, all objects that are books have a type. That's what this means. If it's a book, it has a type. And then you can also give it like public string author, and now all books have a type and all books have an author. And then if you were to go into it more, you'd be like, maybe you would do int pages, or just for example, and then everything has a type, an author, and the number of pages that it has, because it's a book, so it probably has pages in it. Yeah, classes is just a much more convenient way to organize your variables than, for example, if you wanted to have a bunch of books, but you couldn't make new classes. One thing you might do is you might do int, and then you want to make an array of integers called pages, and then you might make an an array of strings called types, and then you might make a string of authors, or not a string, an array of strings called authors, and then you could access all these by numbers or whatnot, but that wouldn't be nearly as convenient as being able to say x.type. Or for example, if you have a specific book you want and you name it like, let's choose an easy book. God, I can't think of any books right now. Anyway, that's not really the point. So yeah. Well, that's not true. I can't think of any short books, so I'll just not. But, like, if you had a book, it's a lot easier to remember, like, this is, insert name here, than it is to remember this is index. I think that's 1. And then what if your arrays get messed up? Like, this is not a very good way to store your data when you could sort like this. And then if you need to have a bunch of them, for example, then what you could do is you just type, whoops, not public. You just do string or book. You just make an array of books called books or whatever, and this way you can access all of your books. Anyway, the basics of classes is just they're another way to store data, and they're very convenient and very important. Often you pretty much want to make a class that only does one thing. Like, for example, this class is a book. It only has to do with being a book. It should not have to do with reading a book. It might have methods to, like, call other things that we read a book, but it should not, like, contain all of the functionality you could ever possibly need for a book. I mean, wait, yeah, well, okay, like, it should just have to do with being a book. It should not have to do with, the tutorial of the game or something. Like, this should be a book. If you need a tutorial, you do a tutorial. For example, in this class program, you don't want to have the same stuff for a book in here. Like, that'd be really silly. And then if you need a bunch more things, like there's gonna be a lot of information about the author, you don't want to have things like int author birth date, and then there's string author first name, or public string. I don't know, all sorts of things. You don't want to have that. You would then be like, oh, well, since I have all these things for an author, perhaps I should make another class called author, and then in here you can do public string name, their first name, last name. It's also a lot shorter than writing author first name, author last name, author birth date. You can just write, like, author dot first name. Okay, it's not shorter, but it's pretty clear what it actually means, as opposed to this, which could get ridiculously long if you're doing, like, author's birth location and birth date. Like, that would not be an ideal thing to do. So anyway, basic introduction to classes. Thanks for watching. Goodbye. Sources in the description. Good luck. Have any problems, ask me.